Right, welcome back. We're gonna do some dry flies, Catskill style, quill bodies, quill Gordon, things like that. Maybe get into a few smaller patterns. But my main goal is to get started on a box for a gentleman who lives in upstate New York. Of course, you can fish, Western style flies in upstate New York, but they tend to like to fish at traditional patterns. Sometimes they're referred to as Catskill patterns or things like that. So we'll do a couple of those, see how far we get. The next few sessions will probably be focused on that. I have enough flies for myself at the moment, so these will be patterns. These will be ties for other people, which is always nice to do. I've never fished in New York. I did fish in, where was I? Massachusetts, I guess, but it didn't really go very well, trout fishing wise. The Berkshires, I went to the Berkshires. It was a bit rough. I think you need to know the area. The one thing I also noticed about fishing back east was there's a lot of private property, and the landowners are not the friendliest. So you have to be careful about that. I shouldn't say they're not the friend. They take their land very seriously, as do most landowners. The sizes, I'm thinking 14, 16s, 18s, kind of your traditional dry fly sizes. We'll go barbless. Here's a 12. Maybe we start with a 12. The wings, wood duck, I think will play. Some hackle tips. I haven't tied a hackle tip winged fly in a while. But I think mainly kind of red quill type patterns are what we'll go for right now. So we'll need some quills. I'm going to use these longer hackles and then strip them down and soak them in some water. That will loosen them up, get them a little bit more malleable. Stripping it really weakens the quill, which is a shame. If you had more time, you could, singe the hair off or find another way, but stripping it is certainly the quickest way. You definitely could do multiple. Ideally, this part to this section right here is the best part for the fly. So I think it's going to be one quill, one fly is what we'll start at. One quill, one fly. You can save some for your tail fibers if you're so inclined. And for the tail fibers, I think you might want to use the top tip section of the feather. They're a little bit finer, a little bit stiffer than the webbier base of the feather. So we'll get those in the water, soaking up. Let's get another feather started. This one we'll just use for tail fibers, then we'll strip the rest of it for quill body. I don't get a lot, fishing in the West, you don't get a lot of brown, bigger brown mayflies. I think that's more of an East Coast thing. I stripped off a little clump of the hackle, and I'm going to tie that in for the tail. About the same length as the shank of the hook, slightly shorter. And then we'll tie in the stem of the hackle, and we'll wrap that for the body. Let's advance our thread. Tying in the wing first before you wrap the body. Some people do that as well. The quill has a nice segmentation. In terms of buoyancy, I don't think it's the best material for a dry fly. But it certainly looks great. And it's slim. That little nub of stem doesn't have to be knocked down, but it's just bothering me. All right, so wings. Wonder if we can get a different, like a darker mallard. Different colored mallard feathers. What do we have? What do we have? So far, I'm only seeing the lighter colored mallard. Here's an orange. That might be too gaudy. Yeah, let's do the lighter color. There's a yellow. I think the natural color is like a yellow color. And that some people will tie the wings with the tips. You can do the tips or the side feathers. Your feather tips are not going to be even. So choosing the feather is important, which it's going to be hard to even those out once you cut it off the feather. Like manually evening them out is going to be difficult. The barbs like to stick together. I think that's the best we can do. I'm going to tie them in facing forward. Loose wrap, tight, tight. You could, well, I guess, yeah, facing forward I think is best. And then once they're nice and secure, I'm going to trim this back piece off. Then I'm going to stand them all together. 2 wraps, a couple wraps in front. This is pretty close to the eye. You would want it a little bit further back. And then we can split. We'll do 1 wrap and 1 wrap. Splitting. Going multiple wraps to split your wings it's unnecessary. It's too many thread wraps. Just one to split, a couple in front to stand it up, a couple behind to secure it down. That's what you're going for. There's a couple longs. I'm gonna knock them off. But other than that, not bad. The mallard is not very buoyant either. So, yeah, this is a dry fly that doesn't float so well, but looks good. And that's what counts. I'm gonna do a grizzly dyed grizzly for our hackle. Straight brown would also be a good color. We'll do this dyed grizz. Don't trap your wing when you tie in your hackle. In terms of the hackle distribution, I think 2-3 wraps behind, 1 wrap in front is what I would go for. We'll trim that out later. So that's 1, 2, 3. You don't want to wrap the hackle on top of itself, so progressing forward is ideal. And then 1, maybe 1 more in front. 2. Yeah, that's enough. Trap the stem, tight, tight. Give it a trim. On the hackle wrap, we overlaid and it pushed this little piece forward, which is not good, but you can trim that out. And then I think we trapped a piece of the wing down here somewhere, but now it's hiding. Oh, it's sticking right there. So we'll knock that out. And then whip. One, 2, 3, work slow, cinch it down. We'll do another one. 1, 2, 3. And looks pretty good, but there's a little bit floating up there. I mean, we can do better. The wing is a little bit too far forward. The thing that we did well for this was the tail ratio. is is about right. The abdomen for this one is a little bit long. The hackled section is a little bit short. The wing is a little bit too far forward. So improvements need to be made. Yes. The wing is also, the feather I chose for the wing was a little bit messy, and the wing tips are not very even. So let's try again. Little thread base. Then we'll get our tail material. Tie in the tail. We have our stem that was soaking in the water. Tie that in. Let's advance the thread. We'll do it there. We'll try to tie the wing in right there. Wrap the stem. One more wrap. That's good. Secure that stem and trim it out. And then we will get a wing going. Trimming out the side of that mallard feather, bringing those fibers together. It's good enough for me, still not great distribution for the wing. These are the tips, so they're pointing forward, measuring out the length of the wing. Tie it on top, tight. Go ahead and advance your thread. Stick the wing up, trim out the rest of the wing. Create your split. You don't even need to create a split if you didn't want to. And then advance your thread. We'll use that same hackle. Trim out tie-in point. And drop it in. Advance the thread. Carefully wrap the hackle. 1, 2, 3, wing, 1, 2, tie off. And snip. And secure that down. Whip. 1, 2, 3. Cinch the whip and do one more. 1, 2, 3. Cinch the whip. Only one stray on this one. Knock out that stray. Little wing stray here. Tail's a little bit too full. Distribution's better in terms of the thorax, abdomen, and the wing placement was better. Here's the kind of side by side. You can tell the hackle portion of this one is thinner because the wing was too far forward. We really had to get as much in as we could in a smaller area. So this one's a little bit more spread out. But the tail for this one is better than the tail for this one. However, they'll both fish the same. The trout won't mind. I think, what do we do? What are we tying? What are we tying? Are we tying an Adams? Oh my God. I am not. The Adams is the best dry fly ever created, but I don't fish them. And I haven't tied one in years. But the box that I'm doing needs it, so we will do it. We'll take one for the team. We'll tie some Adams. I'm going to combine some need some hackle, but the hackle looks a little bit long. For the tail, I'm gonna do the brown plus the ginger. For the tail, I think it's usually grizzly plus brown, but I'm gonna do this dun colored hackle instead of the grizzly hackle. So take a little section of it and then a similar section of brown so the tips are even. Kind of roll it in your finger to mix them up. Obviously that's more material than I'd like. So I'm gonna try to thin it out just a bit here. And then I'll tie it in. I'm clipping that hook point with my thread, splitting my thread up. The tail's a little long, but this will be a delicate Adams. For the Adams, you use hackle tip wings, which I'm gonna have to search for. I don't have a good source of hackle tips. I used to save them, but we'll have to search for some hackle tips. Hackle tip wings are not durable. Maybe we substitute the hackle tip with a synthetic. Yeah, we substitute. The abdomen is dubbing. Traditionally, you would use a muskrat dubbing, which is very soft, good dubbing. But I'm going to use a synthetic superfine dubbing, which is a little bit more suitable for dry flies because you can dub a tighter rope, but you also, I think the synthetic doesn't hold water quite as much as maybe we'll use this for the wing as the traditional pattern. And then rather than gray, I'm going to use a little bit browner gray. But a good Adams has a good taper. So we'll work to create a taper. And that means your dubbing rope will be thinner, getting progressively thicker. Good Adams has a good taper. Which was already not going well because we have a little bit of material built up toward the tie-in point of the tail. Oh man, that's rough. Might take me a couple flies to get in my groove here. That's not much of a taper. The tail, I think, is way too long. I'm tying this like I would a regular mayfly. But I think Adam's proportions aren't regular mayfly proportions. Tails are shorter, things like that. Here, we said we were doing synthetic, but I guess we'll try one with hackle tips. Here are our hackle tips. Some people do them one at a time. I'm gonna try it. The feathers are concave in a direction, so you can split them out, so both are out. And then I'm gonna match the tips, and I'm gonna tie them in together, which isn't normally, I don't think people do this normally. Tie them in together. But we want them resting on top. And then we're gonna lift them. And we're gonna tie them in the front. Then we will chop off the backs, and then we'll try to split one turn. 2 turns. There's a little mess here we have to clean up. That'll be fine. The wings are a little bit too close to the eye, like we did with the first fly we tied. Shame. We'll do our hackle, do a tie-in point, with the grizz. Then we'll tie in our brown. And then we'll wrap. I don't know if you should wrap individually or wrap together. I'm a little bit confused, but when you're wrapping two hackles, obviously you don't have the control. So work slow. We are pushing our feather tip wings forward, which is okay for now. One more wrap. And then tie it off. Tight, tight. Tight, tight. Getting a little bit crowded toward the eye. Not good. Whip it, whip it, whip it. Where'd the old whipper go? I like the dubbing color though for the abdomen. I think that going with the darker gray was a good choice. So that's a win. The tail is 1,000 times too long. We'll have to shorten that up. And then we will. There's a cool fly also called the Delaware River Adams that I think they use more hackles on the body. Various sizes of hackle. That's nice. Got some strays back here. We got a stray up here. Yeah, I'm thinking a centimeter shorter on the tail. We got a slight taper for the body, which was nice. Tying in the tail, not necessarily trimming the tail, but tying it so it's higher up on the body and then down is actually going to fix our taper problem and our tail length problem. So back to it. Because we're tying in the tail shorter, we don't have to tie it in. We can tie it in thicker, if that makes sense. It could be a fuller, shorter tail. Where's our other feather? Here we go. Strip aside of the dun. Oh, we need to start our thread first. I'm gonna bring the thread back up to about the middle. And then strip our brown. And then we will not thin it out. We'll check our tips to make sure they're somewhat even, which they're not really even. We got a longy here. And then we'll measure it out, I think about there. We'll start tying in high and then working down the body. Looser wraps till we get to the end. And then we'll come back up the body a little bit. Yeah, good tail, except there's a couple couple longies. And not so full. All right, let's get our rope. Dubbing. Thin up top. Thicker toward the bottom. Rolling in one direction only. Clockwise. If you roll back and forth, when you wrap, the dubbing noodle will come undone. Gotta get the tip of that a little bit tighter. Get it all the way to the end. Wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's the length we want. We made our dubbing rope too long. Not a great taper, but better than the first one. Tips for wings. Two tips for wings. Concave out. Which is a shame because I guess the feather is the same. Same on both. Let's measure them up. Tie them in. This is a little bit short. There we go. This one. This one's, yeah, there we go. So I tugged on one to even the length. You can, two loose wraps, you can kind of tug to adjust the length of the wing. I'm going to bring them up, thread tension down, bring them up, and then wrap in front. Take off the back. One in the middle. Careful. One in the middle. Careful. Now we gotta clean up the trash. Our wing is a wee bit short. Let me check the length. Yeah, the length of the other one is longer by one stripe, one feather stripe. Let's tie in our hackles. Oh, this one might be better hackle. Oh no, that's pretty messy looking. We'll try. We'll tie in point, trim journey. brownie. One, two. Coming forward. There's a lot of mess going on. Let's bring our hackle forward. Wrap 1, 2, 3. Come forward together. 1, 2. I don't know. I think it's the grizzly. The grizzly feather is jacked up, but the wrap was not great. I'm blaming that grizzly feather. The hackles were kind of going all over the place on that grizzly feather. So we got some wicked strays on the back. I should tie this off before I do that trimming. Secure, secure, whip. Cinch it down. Cinch it down. Our tail is too sparse. Our hackles are all jacked up. The only thing we did, and our wing is too short. The only thing we did well was placement of the wing. What the heck? From the underside, though, the fly doesn't look too bad. So that is a positive. Pretty disappointing. Alrighty. Yes, it is morning for me. It is morning time. We can do some parachutes. We'll do a parachute, Adams. Again, not my favorite fly to fish, but these are not for me. And then we strip off some. Oh man, I messed that up. Okay, tips are much better. Advance, tie in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go to the body. Thin up top, thicker toward the bottom. Again, too much dubbing. You shouldn't go over your dubbing wraps when you're doing a dry fly. But I'm doing it just so I don't have to come back with or to remove some. It's a chubby little body for this fly. This is a polypropylene yarn. We're gonna double it up for our post. We do it after actually. So we'll just tie it in, and then we'll gather a couple in front, a couple behind. And then we'll pick this out. This will need to get trimmed down. We're gonna reposition to an angle. I'm gonna travel the thread above the post and then come back down on it. I'm holding the thread with my thumb and index and then wrapping up the post quite high. I want to create as solid as a foundation on the post as I can, because it's actually going to be where we tie in the hackle and we tie off the fly is going to be on this post. Maybe this is a newer technique. I feel like some people tie in the hackle and then start wrapping up and down and then finishing on the hook. So, hackle. The tie-in point's going to be a little bit longer than normal, because we're going to tie up that post. So tips pointing up the post. We can try to tie them in together. The wraps don't have to be super tight, as long as you get them up that, pointing up that post, and then go back down. You want to dub the thorax, whether you do it thicker, thinner, matching the abdomen, is up to you. You could even change the color if you wanted to. Throw a little flash in there. But you want to then you're going to dub toward the head and then back toward the post. And then you're going to want to finish on the post. For our hackle, we wrap around the post, ideally not having any of these hackles pointing up, but rather to the on the side, and then wrapping your wraps down. That's 2 wraps, that's 3 wraps. 1 more would be nice, however, I think it's unnecessary. And then trap your hackle with your thread. Go ahead, trim off your hackle. Tension, tension, tight as you can. 1 more wrap to secure. And then you're gonna whip. You're not gonna, maybe you can get 2 whips in there, but I think 1 solid one. This thread is a little bit thick. And you're gonna go up under those hackles. Try not to trap any of them. That's a 2-turn whip. I'm gonna stop there. And then I'm gonna really try to cinch it down. If there is enough room, I might add another 2-turn whip. But if it feels nice and tight, I might just trim it out. It feels pretty tight. So we'll give her a triminy. Let's reposition. Is this easier than the other one? I don't know. Trim out the wing. You could do interesting cuts on the wing. You could do like an angled cut up and then a slight angle cut down. That was not good. Or you could just do a straight cut across. Yeah, that was not good. The hackle length is too long for this size. Maybe not. It's the brown. I see what's going on. The brown hackle and the grizzly hackle are different lengths. So the brown is a little bit too long for this. Maybe you undersize the hackle for, so if you're tying a size 12, you would use a 14, etc., etc. I mean, it'll still fish, but not my finest. Gotta do something better. Let's check the time. Oh, we're getting there. I think we got time for a couple more. Couple more. I need some, so PMDs. We need more PMDs. Yeah, maybe we do some PMDs. Need some small hooks. I'm looking for this will do. We need to change the color of our thread. A white or a yellow would be the appropriate color. This is kind of a golden, not much left on this spool, but we will use it. This is called a thorax done. Great pattern. Everyone has a different style thorax done, which means they change the material. This thorax done will be a CDC wing with a dubbed body. I'm gonna, instead of trying to match so this is a pale morning dun. The color of the is traditionally like a yellow, but instead of trying to match the tail fiber color, I'm gonna use a kind of a generic darker CDL fiber, but sparse. Only three filaments of the CDL. Oh man, we lost one. 2 filaments of the CDL. Measuring, 1 filament of the CDL. Come on, baby. I'm getting down to the bare bones of this feather. This is what the CDL looks like normally. It's a nice looking feather. I think it's a chicken. I know it's a chicken. Okay, 3 filaments of CDL. Nice and long. Nice and long. Right on top there. And then we'll trim out the excess. The body will be dubbed, a dubbing light yellow or olive, light olive colored dubbing for the body. Please, please, where are you dubbing? Oh, come on. Ooh, there you are. Nice and sparse amount with a pinch of olive. Of olive. I don't want to tear it up, the fibers up too short. I'm keeping the fibers long, and then I'm just going to layer them one on top of the other. And that's going to be our blend. I wouldn't worry too much about a taper here. I just get the material on the rope. It doesn't have to be too long. And then dub our body. We can dub this one nice and high. Our wing is going to tilt a little bit forward. It's going to be a one-piece upright CDC wing, and it can tilt a little bit forward. And we could do a pale yellow. I kind of think a little bit darker is better. What color is this? This is Calabatus. So here are our options. I'm trying to look for a middle, and here's the middle color. So you can see the three. Would be the darker, the middle, and the lighter. I'm going to go with the middle. But the lighter one, I've caught many fish with the lighter one. Lighter one is also a good option. And I'm going to look for one feather that has a good tip. We can, like this. So this feather, drawing the base of the feather up, creates a nice bunch. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna tie it in toward the side. One loose wrap, drawing the feather up to the desired length, maybe, right. There. Tighten down, come up, and then we'll trim this out. You can use this for the next wing as well. It's not trash, so save that. For our hackle, yep, that's a good length. We don't need to do a ton of hackle wraps because we're going to trim out the bottom of the hackle. You want this one to sit nice and low. Nice and low in the water. You're not fishing a pale morning dun hatch in fast water. It's going to be in a tail out, a nice slow run. So your pattern has to, you shouldn't use a fully hackled, fully dressed. It should be sparse. It should, it's going to ride low, natural. Is going to be your best bet. And then we'll give her one wrap, two wraps coming up front, one wrap, two wraps. Give it a trap. And trim it out. Secure. One, two, three. Thread is a little bit dark. Whoa, what did I just do? 3. Cinch down. And come around this little bit on the side, little bit on the bottom, and you're gonna trim those hackles. A little bit on the side, a little bit on the bottom. If you want, you can take them all the way down. That's your choice. But I've always found that's enough. Even leaving it a little bit longer is good. But in terms of like a PMD pattern, I haven't found anything that's better than a thorax done, which, yeah, that guy right there. That's what you want. But I do not fish a lot of PMD hatches. I've fished more blue wing olive hatches, and those are a little bit more forgiving, I feel, than the old PMD hatch. But I think the PMD is, in terms of distribution, you can find them all over the world in trout streams. So a good pattern to have. I'm gonna point out the darker color tail, like it fits. The tail doesn't need to be yellow. Our tail's a wee crooked. And then 3 CDL filaments is the perfect amount. But it's also gonna break. It's gonna be the perfect amount for 3 fish, and then you will have no tail. Measure that out. What do we got? We have 2. We'll dance with 2. That's a little long. We had our leftover blend. Hopefully this is enough to finish this rope. I think it will be. Good. Our feather. Oh, we're gonna use the scrap of the one we did. Obviously the stem is a little bit thicker, and so the wing is gonna be a little bit stubbier, but it will still work, as I will show. And you can trim it if you need to. A little bit more, that's good. Couple wraps in front, couple wraps behind. Could this be a wing? Nah. let's trim this. So we'll come down on this side a little bit. Then we'll come up on this side a little bit. Wing. And get a hackle. It's not a good hackle. This is a better hackle. Tie it in. 1, 2, 3. Finish up here. 1, 2. 1, 2. Tie it off. Trim it out. A few securing wraps. Whip it out. Whip it up, rather. Trim a little bit on the sides, coming under, a little bit on the sides. And then there was a few strays pointing backwards. There we go. Thorax done. All right. Let's review the day's progress. Get our pattern situated. Okay, so we started out with a red quill. This abdomen is a stripped brown hackle soaked before we tied it. And then the tail is thin, same hackle. We did a dyed brown grizzly with a mallard tip wing for our red quill, Gordon, red quill. I don't know what, but this is traditional Eastern American East Coast style fly, Catskill dry. Then we did some Adams. We did a darker brown or darker gray synthetic dubbing. The tail is blended brown with dun, not brown with grizzly. This one's a little bit long. We stuck with the hackle tips and then grizzly brown hackle wrapped. Then we did a parachute. You can't, a little bit, see the parachute wing. Didn't turn out great. And then we finished up with our thorax done PMD patterns. with a CDC wing, a done hackle clipped, and then a synthetic dubbing, a body with a CDL tail, long and sparse. And I like how this one turned out. These turned out okay. These turned out okay, but this one was ugly because the hackle was too long for the size of the fly. And then the tail, I don't know what the heck, is too short, but just it doesn't look very good. So that's the day's work. We done. I'll see you next time.